Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Christine Kennedy, and on behalf of the Office of Alumni Engagement, I'd like to thank you for joining us to hear from Nicole Rakowski, a double McMaster graduate who will soon add a PhD to her resume, so 3 letters behind her name. And she's going to talk about a topic that is very passionate in her heart, finding motivation through fitness. Before I begin our webinar, I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that the land on which this webinar is taking place here at McMaster, I'm at my home, but of course it's all part of McMaster series. We recognize that it's on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations. The territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. This is our 4th event of our At Home with Mac New Year, New Mindset series. So for those of you who tuned in last week, we had some great programming last week. Thank you for your continued support and joining us today. And for those who are joining us for the first time, well, a special welcome to you. Our Alumni At Home with Mac is a series of talks and events designed to help you shift your mindset as you enter the new year and embark on new goals and aspirations. And just a reminder, there's prizes because we love prizes. For every At Home with Mac event you register for and attend, you'll be entered into a random draw for a chance to win one of 3 Philips Smart Sleep Wake Up Lights. Winners will be announced the week of February 5th through an email. A reminder, some of you always ask, oh, is this talk being recorded? And yep, it is being recorded. So if you need to leave or if you are looking for more in-depth information, we don't give out the slides, but you can always just, when you listen to the recording, you can pause and take notes. So you will get an email with a link to the recording in a couple days. Thanks to everyone who pre-submitted those questions during the registration process. I believe Nicole has weaved some of those. She'll be answering some of those through her talk. And then we're also going to take time to answer a few of those at the end of the formal presentation. A reminder, if you have a technical question like, oh, there's something going on, please put that in the chat and leave all your actual questions for Nicole in the Q&A section. So that's a little icon at the bottom of your screen. And if you're on an iPad, I think it's up at the top. So just leave the questions for the Q&A section, please. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening, Nicole Rakowski. Nicole graduated from McMaster with an undergraduate degree in life sciences, a graduate degree in global health, and she's now working on her PhD in health management through the DeGroote School of Business. But not only is she a student, she's also a sessional faculty member teaching various courses. Nicole's research interests include digital health technologies and genomics, fitness and physiology, complex chronic conditions such as obesity and type 2 diabetes, health engagement policies, and strategies to improve health. These academic interests, along with her own passion for sport and fitness, led her to co-found a fitness app, Fit Sensitive, which is the only free fitness app on the market that rewards users for working out. And I believe Nicole's going to talk a little bit about that too. Now, she seeks to help motivate a love of physical activity in other people, and you can see she is well-founded to do this. And I have no doubt that tonight you are going to feel motivated. So Nicole, thanks for joining us, and I'll hand it over to you for the presentation, and then we're going to do a little bit of a fireside chat, and then we'll go to some open Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christine, and what lovely introduction. And those are definitely some great incentives to join the webinar. So that's great to hear as well. So as Christine mentioned, so I am the co-founder and chief fitness officer of Fitcentive, which I'll be talking a little bit more about. Also a survivor of adversity. So I'll get into that story a little bit today. Mom of 2 fur babies and my incredible husband as well. And probably the most exciting to me is that I am a competitive bodybuilding athlete and an internationally recognized fitness model. But really, I truly didn't know that I was going to become an athlete where I compete at the level I am at right now. I was heavily involved in fitness and sports my entire life, playing competitive soccer. I was a wakeboarder, played beach volleyball, ran track and field, you name it. I was sort of part of it. However, there were several instances in my life that at the time I thought for sure that I was never going to be able to play sports again, that I would never be able to step onto a field or a stage or run or walk for that matter. It was 7 years ago that I had a life-changing accident, an accident that was supposed to change the way that I would live for the rest of my life. So they say that you see these two bright lights followed by this out-of-body experience prior to crossing the bridge. I remember laying in the ambulance, seeing the faces of several different paramedics hovering above me before these two black curtains essentially just shut. I was later told that this was probably due to heightened state of consciousness with sharp increases in high frequency brain waves called gamma oscillations, otherwise known as near-death visions. So that's what I was sort of told by different medical professionals. It was February 2017. Crazy to see how quickly time has flown by, almost 7 years ago now. And two of my good friends and I traveled to Iceland, one of the most beautiful and incredible countries in the world. I'm sure some of you on the call on the webinar have been to Iceland before. For those of you who haven't, so it is often known as the island of fire and ice, essentially, because it is home to numerous active volcanoes and glaciers. The country is located on the mid-Atlantic ridge, where it is separated essentially by two tectonic plates. And as a result, Iceland experiences frequent earthquakes as well as volcanic eruptions. So even in the photos, you can see it's absolutely breathtaking, but definitely, an area to be cautious about. There's a lot of geothermal activity happening under the surface that we essentially cannot see. On the second last day of the trip that I had with my two good friends, we went on a 2-hour hike to this natural hot spring outside of Reykjavik, which is the capital of Iceland. And the spring itself is nestled in this little valley just inside of a small mountain range known as the Hot River. And this natural attraction was commonly listed on travel blogs and websites about Iceland. But that being said, it's a little bit off the beaten path and not likely on the itinerary of many, let's say, quick fixed tourists. However, it was an area that we heard about that we definitely wanted to go and see. On our hike up, we would see essentially these hot pools and geysers steaming, which were absolutely breathtaking. But at the same time, it was quite evident that you knew how dangerous they could be. And obviously, none of us had any intention of going anywhere near them. But it was just one of those things that was absolutely stunning. But you obviously knew that, you didn't want to necessarily immerse yourself in that. Like much of the Iceland, the terrain around the river was really raw with little trace of human touch, with the exception of some wooden platforms along the water where people could sort of leave their shoes and clothing, etc., as you can see in the image here. There was no signage anywhere to indicate where one should access the river. When we sort of arrived there, we're walking on the wooden platforms. There was tourists scattered throughout, about maybe 20 to 50, I would say, individuals, all lounging in waist-deep water. My friends and I, we dipped our hands in to test the water temperature. It was quite mild, maybe bathtub temperature, if that. But we decided to walk slightly upstream where we found the water to be slightly warmer, but still not very hot. So this is something, in speaking to tourists, they sort of told us to go further up. We set down our backpacks and started changing into our swimsuits. I was beyond excited to get into that pool and was the first one to step down into the shallow dirt riverbank. It was about, 2 feet deep to step into the water, 2 feet away from us. And on my way down, the dirt essentially just gave way. And before I knew it, I was knee deep in that mud. What no one else could see at the time is that I'd actually sunken into an underground geothermal source that was feeding the entire heat of the river. At that point, I knew something was not right. And I knew it was hot. And I started screaming, I'm burning at the top of my lungs. When people ask me essentially what it felt like, I always describe it as these continuous sort of knife stabbings into my legs. And it slowly started to creep its way up from my feet, past my shins to my knees. And at that point, I knew something was absolutely not right. So my friends, after I sort of started screaming, I couldn't get out. I was scraping at the moss at the side. They ran over to me right away. They pulled me as best as they could to safety. We were looking down at my legs and feet. They were severely red. The skin was sort of peeling back to the sides and they were severely starting to blister. So my two friends at that point, they had wrapped my feet in clothing and called on any sort of nearby tourists for help. They were screaming. There was one man that ran over to us, another traveler in his mid, maybe 30s. He came over with nothing more than essentially a small first aid kit. So he had band-aids in there, some bandages, and my skin started to blister so badly, and you can tell that it was significant burns. It was at that point that the team and other individuals and strangers that had run over realized that I, really needed to get out of there, and the few supplies that they had, they just weren't enough. The teams quickly established that I needed to be carried out of there as soon as possible, but I lost consciousness as they began carrying me. Within a few seconds, I continued to come in and out of consciousness, and I was clearly very frightened and in an immense amount of pain. For those of you who sort of think about, getting a burn even just on your finger when touching, let's say, a hot stove or a hot surface, for that split second, we know how hot it is. And this is something that I was immersed in for the physician said approximately 30 seconds with the significant amount of burns that I had. So if you can just sort of imagine for a moment, the sort of intensity of it. So again, I was really in and out of consciousness at the point. A few times as individuals tried to clothe me, the air was extremely frigid, right? So I was at risk of developing hypothermia. At this point, there's many other individuals that had helped gather around. They came to the conclusion that it was, we had a very, very small window of time if I had any sort of chance of survival and recovery. There was several men that took turns carrying me. They used sweaters, jackets to create these slings. It was very slow because I was a dead weight and I was continuously in and out of consciousness. So after about 5 minutes, one of my friends ran ahead to try and regain some sort of cell phone reception to call emergency services. It took about 10 to 15 minutes of running down that mountain before my friend had enough service to actually make a call. And she later learned that someone at the top of the mountain had actually phoned around the same time and was able to get through to emergency services, which then had sort of coordinated that they were on their way. But my friend did not stop running until they gained some sort of cell phone reception. Shortly after, my friend received a call from this gentleman named Lee, and he was an off-duty first responder from the USA who came across me as he was making the hike up. And with his rescue training that he had gone through, they were able to tile into a radio, which then again sort of had this emergency that came up and met us up the mountain. And, I was somewhat stable at that point, but they were working very quickly to bring me down. I was again on the verge of hypothermia. My blood pressure was dropping very quickly. I was becoming tachycardic. And him, along with other individuals that we had sort of spoken to along the way, knew that this situation was not good at all. And at that point in time, there was sort of little I remember in and out. I remember looking at Lee and I asked, am I going to die? And his response was, not on my watch. And that's when sort of everything sort of kicked into gear. I was put into the ambulance after making my way down the mountain. When I got to the hospital, I was about to be put under general anesthesia in an unfamiliar country. The doctors and the nurses were speaking in Icelandic, and I was being told information that I couldn't understand. So right before surgery, I had no idea if I would wake up. And if I did, I had no idea if my legs would still be attached. So fast forward, I was stable enough after 24 hours to fly home back to my hometown of Hamilton. And I ended up being back in the burn unit. So at Hamilton Health Sciences, which is a tertiary and specialized hospital for burn victims at the Hamilton General, where I was for the next approximately 2 weeks. And doctors didn't know if I would be able to walk again earlier on. And if I did, what would that look like? But surviving second and third degree burns was not my last feat. At just 28 years old, I had overcome 3 retinal detachments and I had undergone cataract surgery. I was told yet again that I would no longer be able to partake in competitive sports as I am at a high risk for reoccurring detachments and eventual blindness. And this was really due to me playing sports my entire life, receiving different concussions, having significant myopic vision, and also part of that was hereditary as well. So again, the second and third degree burns were not my last feat. It just sort of continued from there. And the part that really got to me at that point was that I was beyond passionate for sports, and this was essentially heartbreaking for me. I knew that there had to be some sort of other way. I could accept failure to some degree, but what I could not accept was never trying again. So after regaining some sort of focus, I realized that it doesn't matter how many times you may be shut down from pursuing your passions. You can only really succeed if you continue to try. And I knew that if I never quit, my passion essentially for athletics could never die. Athletics was really my stress relief throughout life. No matter how busy I was at the end of the day, I would always find the time to run, to play on a team, to compete. It was just truly my release. And I think all of us have that, a release that really drove me to exceed in my professional development, excel in academics, become valedictorian, receive one of the most prestigious awards in undergrad. And I knew what I had to do, but more importantly, I think, is I knew why I had to do it. And like any other student at that time, child, adult on this planet, anyone on this call, I'm not unique in facing adversity. And I think that's one of the biggest and strongest messages that I want to convey today is that it's not just me. We all have our own discord. For me, whether it was, life-threatening injuries or personal battles, it was sports that really helped guide me towards a larger purpose. And when I could no longer pursue the sports that I once would, weightlifting and running really gave me the outlet that I needed during these tough times to simply put some of this past behind me. And from all of this, I think the most important day in my life that I still remember is when I found my why. I had spent more than 2 weeks lying face down on a vitrectomy bed post eye surgery. I'm not sure if anyone on the call has ever gone through having a retinal detachment and then having a vitrectomy surgery. It is a nightmare, to say the least. It was extremely uncomfortable, but it still allowed me the opportunity to do a lot of thinking. I was unable to watch or see anything as my eyes were recovering, and I could essentially not move while laying down for 2 weeks straight. It felt like absolute torture. Again, for those of you who have not gone through it, you're essentially your face is down into that little pad sort of thing. You're hanging off the edge of a bed or on a massage table, which I was, and you simply cannot move for 2 weeks in that position. If you can imagine anything worse than that, there's not much. Going to the bathroom, was a struggle. I had to keep my head down in that position. Eating essentially was with a soup or through a straw. Everything was blended, and I could not open my eyes for 2 weeks. All I could do at that point was listen with my eyes closed and think. I listened to a number of podcasts, changed my traditional form of learning from visual to auditory. This was a huge challenge and a change for me. And it was this experience that forced me to endure something so uncomfortable while also challenging my mind to think alternatively. And I knew that without strict compliance to post-operative face-down positioning, my retinal detachment surgery would most likely be unsuccessful. So this long spell of discord from physical light, from technology, from people, and typical sensory inputs made me realize that maybe I didn't need to quit sports. I just needed to change my traditional approach. I needed to be broken down in order to understand my life, and the why inside of my life. So knowing my why made my what a lot more meaningful, and I tried to apply these same lessons to all other aspects of my life. Before finding my purpose, I had to discover my passion and what truly grounded me. Only then it led me to my purpose. So athletics was my release from reality that led me to understand what I want to do in life. And it's all those experiences that sort of joined in together, right? Like at 28 years old, I already had cataract surgery. When I was in the waiting room, I sort of joked with my parents about this is, everyone sort of assumed that I was there with a grandparent in the waiting room, right? Because everyone that was there was at least, 60 at minimum. Most individuals were over the age of 80, but I was always the youngest in the room, and everyone assumed that I was there taking a grandparent or someone, but I was there as a patient myself. So that really goes and sort of shows where all this has led to, but that provides, I think, a unique story, but also one that's not unique in the sense that everyone goes through something in life and we all have different challenges. So I hope that this just provides a little bit of insight and input into a new perspective. But again, I'm happy to take questions and happy to have a further chat with Christine just in regards to some of the aftermath and the effects of it.
Wow, like what a story. Like I knew some of that because you had we had done a story on you, but wow, like to hear it from you versus reading it, super impactful. Although I did laugh about your story of being the cataract surgery because I had grandparents, they've long passed, but I think all four of them have had have had cataract surgery. Like it's just something I think part of the aging process. So I'm sure everyone was quite surprised to see such a young person in the and getting ready for cataract surgery.
Yeah.
So the big question, like, so where has all of this led you?
So it's a great question. All this has really led to where I am today, involved in various community initiatives, pursuing weightlifting, continuing my academic journey through a Doctor of Philosophy and Health Management, and really advancing my professional development. Being able to walk again after third-degree burns was a miracle, as stated by most medical experts. And, not being able to regain my vision after 4 life-changing eye surgeries was a privilege that I initially took for granted. None of us expect to endure these challenges until they really happen to us personally, right? I was told I'd never be able to play sports again or compete, but I challenged that and I looked for opportunities within. So my strength only grew from overcoming what I thought I couldn't. I ran both figuratively as well as literally towards the challenges that I feared most. And at the end of the day, I learned to value what is really worth standing for. I still have nerve damage to this day, but I'm thankful for the exceptional care that I received. And most importantly, I did not let this stop me. I did not allow this to stop me from achieving any sort of goals that I had.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic because I guess it can go one of two ways. You can kind of shut down, or you can take all of that and move forward.
Absolutely.
So given all of these challenges, what would you say was the most important in keeping you going and pushing you through like these really challenging, like the thought of having to lie on that bed for 2 weeks and not do anything and drink from a straw? Like, oh my gosh. So like, yeah, can you sort of um yeah, give us an idea of like what kept you going?
I would say it was the grit, the perseverance, and determination to push through each day. I failed, and this is why I'd succeeded. And I'm not talking about, necessarily mental failure, or at times it was, but my body had failed, and due to additional hardships and challenges that came that I felt like were completely out of my control. But at the end of the day, thinking about it and lying in that bed for 2 weeks, I thought to myself that I had to fail or to face some sort of hardship or challenges, to put it another way, in order to succeed. And this led me to that mental mindset of succeeding and achieving new goals. I learned to foster resilience, to master my inner strength and challenge the status quo, and to learn that it's okay. And this translates again beyond the walls of athletics and into our daily lives. Again, all of us face some sort of struggles, whether it's from work, whether it's personal, whether it's with kids, whether it's with hobbies. And for me, I always went all in or nothing. I never liked doing anything for fun or did it leisurely. I was a competitor. So for me, it was giving 150% was all I knew how to do. I didn't know what leisurely meant, but I couldn't risk any more concussions. So I'd say that was sort of the most important in keeping me going and pushing through.
Right. And it's I'm glad that you were able to sort of slow down
Yeah,
because now that's helped, where you are now. I kind of talked about a little bit about the Life After Mac story that I think was a couple years old now. I think that's how we first were introduced to you
right.
through that story. And can you just elaborate sort of this idea that in order to succeed, you have to fail? I mean, we hear about that a lot. But can you elaborate like how you think this can, this helped you on your journey and maybe how it can help others?
Absolutely. So I mean, the fact of failing is an interesting one, right? And I think it's subjective, and individuals can sort of tackle it many different ways in which they choose. But one example I always like to give, and I like giving this to my students when I teach, and they love this example, so I've sort of kept at it, given the fact that they sort of can relate to various aspects of it. So I traveled to Las Vegas not too long ago to train with one of the best trainers in the world when it comes to weight training. And again, this is totally an example that's just applicable to me, but I think people can find sort of relativities in this example. So this trainer, again, he's known all over the world. He's Serbian, has very old school ways of training and teaching. He's very strict, very cold, but truly he's the best in the world when it comes to what he does. And it was leg day. So for anyone that's on the call that knows working out, leg day is typically the most, I would say, intensive. So he brought me over to the squat rack and put on two 45-pound plates on either side of a bar. And he told me to squat. So I got maybe 8 squats in. He said, all right, now wait 30 seconds and do it again. So I thought, oh, okay, off to a great start. So I put the bar on my back and I did maybe another like 3 to 4. I'm thinking 30 seconds of a rest period is not that great in between. He said, all right, now wait another 30 seconds and do it again. So I put the weight on my back and did 1 squat, kippling over, barely making it up. I racked the bar. My legs were pumped at that point, and I said to him, all right, what's next? He said, what's next is we're not leaving here until we do 100 more. I looked at him and I said that that's just impossible. And he said that the limitations that you are putting on yourself are self-imposed. Get back under that bar. Over the next course of that hour to 2, I did them. And that started a whole new mental journey for myself that I've never been on. What I'd learned, and I want other people on this call to really take away from, is that having setbacks or failing is not the end. In fact, failing is the needed opportunity to turn weakness into strength. So I learned at that point that resilience is not just about bouncing back from adversity. It's about using that experience to become a better and stronger person. And that's essentially the same message I want to share with everyone that's on here today, is that life is going to throw challenges at you and will test your strength and your perseverance. But it's okay to stumble. It's okay to fail. And it's okay to feel like there is no way out at some point. So what's not okay is giving up on yourself. That's when you lose the battle.
Yeah, that's incredible. And the thing that you said, well, it took me an hour or 2 hours, but you did it,
Exactly. And
right?
I was
And
keeled over. I was out of breath. I thought to myself, I couldn't do it, but I traveled all this way. I thought to myself, I have to be here for it.
right, so it's the perseverance, right?
Absolutely.
That is key. Um, so we talked about in the synopsis when you and I were creating this talk, we wanted to talk about the interconnectedness between mental resilience, which clearly have lots of motivation, physical activity, and personal well-being, and how this relates to some of the other work that you're currently doing. Like, can you sort of discuss all of those things for us?
Yeah, very interesting point. So when I think about the interconnected relationship between mental resilience, there's motivation, there's physical activity, there's personal well-being. It's all multifaceted, but it's truly mutually reinforcing. So for me, and I know other individuals can state their own definitions, but mental resilience refers to the ability to adapt and bounce back from challenges, while motivation is really, what is that driving force that propels individuals towards their goals? Physical activity, I think that's a little bit more self-explanatory. On the other hand, it encompasses various forms of exercise and movement that contributes to some sort of physical fitness. But these elements are all interconnected in the sense that they influence and they support each other. So engaging in regular physical activity has been shown, for example, to have positive effects on mental health, including reducing symptoms of anxiety, depression, improving mood, enhancing overall well-being. I don't think this is, new scientific evidence to anyone. Physical activity can also enhance, cognitive function, leading to improved focus, memory, and mental clarity. And in turn, that mental resilience plays such a crucial role in maintaining motivation. So when we look at being faced with obstacles or setbacks, individuals with a higher level of mental resilience are more likely to persevere and stay motivated towards their goals. Additionally, motivation can be enhanced through realistic settings, achievable goals, which can all then be facilitated by maintaining some of that good mental resilience. So I think overall, the combination of mental resilience, motivation, physical activity, again, that personal well-being that falls into the mix forms this positive feedback loop. So engaging in physical activity, boosts mental resilience and motivation, which in turn contributes to improved personal well-being. Similarly, when we have a strong sense of personal well-being, this can enhance motivation and mental resilience, leading to a more active, and even a fulfilling lifestyle that individuals lead on a daily basis.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So maybe you can further elaborate how the benefits of incentives, right? So there's a lot, you're talking a lot about sort of intrinsic, right?
Right.
And incentives are a bit extrinsic, but like how incentives in relation to motivation and sticking to personal goals, how they all fit in the context of fitness and well-being. Can you sort of elaborate?
For sure. And I think these are related to some of the questions that came in as well earlier. So for myself personally, and I know for other individuals as well, so incentives can serve as very powerful tools to enhance motivation, right? These can be things or tools, again, to help individuals stay committed to their fitness goals and well-being goals or whatever it may be. So there's been many, many, many studies out there that have suggested that by providing rewards or incentives, individuals are more likely to stay motivated and engaged in their fitness routines. And these incentives can take various forms, such as, tangible rewards, it could be recognition, or even personal milestones. So when individuals have something to strive for and a potential reward at the end of the day to look forward to, it can then significantly increase their motivational levels. Incentives can also help individuals, overcome different challenges and setbacks by providing sort of that sense of accomplishment and reinforcement. So when individuals achieve their goals or their milestones, they can experience that sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, which then further boosts their motivation to continue their fitness journey. So again, it's sort of that positive feedback loop that I was chatting about earlier.
And how do habits, like how do healthy habits, how does that work in, adopting them and incentives, habits? Can you talk a little bit about how those are related?
Yeah, absolutely. So incentives also play a role in creating some of those positive habits, but also that behavior change that we want to see instilled in individuals. So by associating rewards with desired behaviors, individuals are so much more likely to adopt and maintain healthy habits over time. It can lead to long-term improvements in fitness and overall well-being. But overall, incentives can really be that valuable tool in promoting motivation and adherence to personal fitness and well-being goals. They can provide individuals with tangible rewards, as I mentioned, recognition, sense of accomplishment, which can all then enhance that motivation, that resilience, and ultimately control and contribute to someone's well-being at the end of the day.
Excellent. Well, clearly through your own sort of life as an athlete, and then with the adversity that you had to overcome, you have a lot of insight on sort of like how these incentives work, and sort of behavioral habits and change and blah, blah, blah. And I think this leads into something that you want to talk about. And I apologize, I mispronounced the fitness app. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that and share, because this is a project that I think you've been working on, and it sort of comes into all of this that we're talking about.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's very an exciting announcement and relatively new on my docket of projects. So, I'm the co-founder and chief fitness officer of an incredible app called Fitcentive. So it's kind of like, incentive, but Fitcentive. And I really call this my brainchild, but this is really the progeny of Zach Magerman's original creation, who I've partnered with over the past year, and it's been nothing but incredible so far. And to tell the viewers a little bit more about this app, so this app truly stands out in the crowded fitness app market. It's nothing like the counterparts. It's not just any app. It's really a movement that thousands of individuals have joined so far. And this is the only free fitness app on the market that actually pays users to work out. This is a free fitness app that not only transforms the way individuals approach their wellness journey, but it also pioneers a unique concept that I've been chatting about, which again is rewarding users for their commitment to fitness and wanting to become healthier, wanting to continue to engage in different physical activities. And so this app itself, so it offers on demand featured fully length workouts, guided workouts where users are actually rewarded again for every single workout that they complete. And our main focus is at home workouts that utilize minimal to no equipment and currently boast a library. We have over 350 plus workouts. There's more than 20 different categories. We have over 35 different certified instructors. With well over 100 instructors that have been registered with us as well. So we've had more than, I think, 6,000 downloads today. There's more than 3,000 active users, and there's tons of different in-app features such as workout challenges, ability to create custom workout sessions using playlist and so forth. And as a bonus, we are also completely ad-free, which helps in creating the best user experience overall. So if individuals are looking to, become healthier, sort of have that, motivation, that's something absolutely that individuals can download. And I'm just noticing in the chat as well, is your app suitable for all ages? Absolutely. This isn't for older adults. It's not for younger individuals. It's not for middle age. This is suitable for anyone. Of course, we have a target audience, as with any sort of companies, which is, middle-aged sort of women. But the only reason that's our target audience is because that's the sort of projected target audience that we're finding is the most sort of in need or want in terms of downloading an app and getting motivated at home, whether they have children at home. But this is suitable for all ages, absolutely. And we have both men and women on there. We have individuals with various backgrounds on there. Again, seniors. We have children that love joining their parents working out when doing this. So definitely great for all ages.
Yeah, and definitely, because I have two teenage daughters.
Right.
As an adult, then if you use this app or whatever kind of physical activity, if you can get your kids to do it, right, that's really good role modeling, right? And then,
Absolutely. And they're
yeah,
fun. Like you can have challenges on there. And again, like you're earning rewards at the end of it. And then you exchange your rewards and points into gift cards at the end of it. So, I mean, it's really, there's no better win at the end of the day.
yes, because who doesn't like who doesn't like free stuff and like because we're giving something away. So yes, we always know that people enjoy free swag.
Exactly.
Um, So let's go into, because we had lots of pre-submitted questions. So I'll start with some of the pre-submitted questions. And if people want to add their questions into the Q&A, then they can do that. So the first question that I wanted to ask was, how do you balance fear of failure versus motivation to enter fitness events? Because those fitness events
Ah,
that that you do take a lot of training,
a
and
lot of preparation.
you're also presenting, right? Like
Yeah.
you and I talked, I was a runner, I was a triathlete, and it's just like me against myself. But like your fitness events, there's a whole other layer going on
Yeah.
there.
And it's very interesting because for bodybuilding, which is what I do, a lot of it is aesthetics, right? And you're right, it's the way you sort of present yourself on stage. But I've been, again, a competitive athlete in many different fields in terms of track and field and volleyball, right? So you're sort of bringing yourself forward for different reasons. Some of it is a team sport, some of it you're up against yourself, some of it you're up against other individuals, right? So, but that's a really good question. So how to balance fear of failure? So for myself to balance fear of failure and motivation, to enter like I'm going to say a bodybuilding event for myself, but again, I'm trying to make it applicable to anyone, is that you can focus on setting realistic goals. I think that applies to anyone, right? Starting with some sort of achievable target that aligns with your current fitness level, right? If you're setting yourself up for something that is not achievable, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? And then you can be disappointed in yourself. So I think setting those realistic goals is number one. And I think also focusing on the journey, but concentrating on the process and improvements, not just the end result. So that is something that I always have to tell myself is I'm sort of picturing myself, I want to be on stage, I want to win gold, I want to win first place in a medal, but sometimes if you're only focusing on the end result, you miss everything that you're gaining throughout the journey and throughout the process. And then you're sort of missing essential milestones along the way. I think having that personal and positive mindset is also something. So, we all get negative thoughts that come into our head, but if we can sort of change them around and, have those positive affirmations, that really goes a long way. Seeking support, that's another big one. So joining a community or group, for example, to share different experiences and gain encouragement. For example, the gym that I go to is one of the most motivating and inspirational gyms that I could ever be on. This app, Fitcentive, is a whole nother fitness community of its own, right? We have individuals on there that all have, some have similar goals, some don't, but everyone is so encouraging, so wanting to promote that positive and healthy space that, we all feel like a community together, whether individuals are from the States or all across the world. It really feels like that altruistic sense of community. And I think one of the last points that I'll make in regards to balancing that fear of failure is accepting failure, right? So you can join a community or group to share those experiences to gain encouragement. You can share those with your family, with your friends. But remember, it's important to enjoy the journey and not just the destination, as I always sort of try and tell myself, right? So again, achieving those goals, but setting achievable goals, focusing on the process, seeking support, can really help at the end of the day.
Well, I think you bring up some good, sorry, Andrea's just saying, what's the name of the app again?
Okay, so why don't I type it in?
Fitcentive, right? Fit like a
Incentive. Yep, exactly. And
Fitcentive,
it's
like
downloadable on Google Play, on Android devices, on Apple. And again, it's free to download. So if you just type in Fitcentive, and I just wrote it in the chat there, it should come up. It's
basically
also,
like incentive, but
but
Fitcentive.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
A point that I think we've had other speakers talk about, the sense of community that if you, especially if you find a partner, right? Like, so if you want to add um, physical fitness into your routine, if you have a partner or have some kind of community, you're more likely to stick with that. Like, there's a motivation there.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. You have that motivating factor of having someone else by your side, right? You have that motivation, that accountability. Having someone to exercise with can really help keep you motivated and accountable at the end of the day, right? And sometimes it's about starting small, and you can start small with someone, right? If you're new to exercising, you can start with the small, manageable goals and then gradually increase the intensity and duration of your workouts. And maybe that's done with a partner.
So yeah, because what's the saying? Misery loves company.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? You get through a hard workout, but you feel so good about it together at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So a question, this person I think must have known all about your, all of these sort of challenges that you had. So they asked, how did you get motivated again after going through all those personal difficulties, those, physical difficulties?
Right. And I think for me, it was, laying in that vitrectomy bed for over 2 weeks. Like I just remember it was hell. And I thought to myself, like, I've hit rock bottom. Like I don't think it gets any worse than here. So I thought to myself, I can continue to lay here at the end of the day, or I can make a change. And I felt so awfully miserable in the position that I was in, thinking, you know, I can't describe enough when you lose your vision and can't open your eyes for 2 weeks what that feels like. There's nothing, burns also significant, but losing your vision after being able to see for so long is truly horrendous. So, I really did hit my rock bottom, and I think some of the things that I had to do was acknowledge how I felt and allowing myself to experience that fully. And I shared that with friends. I shared that with my family. And, I had friends that came over to support me throughout the process. I had my parents, which really helped. So I think for me, it was acknowledging how I felt, but also seeking support from friends and family and, professionals if I needed to. Something else that I focused on was self-care by ensuring that I could still eat well as much as I could by sleeping enough. And then after, I really realized that exercise, you know, sort of produced those endorphins that I really needed to feel good about myself. It was again a release that I found, but it was again those small milestones along the way, right? When I was told I would never be able to walk again, it was, putting pressure on my feet. It was then taking a step. It was then moving towards a walker. It was then eventually using crutches to essentially being able to walk again fully, right? So I think we have to remember that some of these small things along the way really make a big difference. And then it can be the aspect of, focus on what you can control and let go of the things beyond your control. I think this is something that we are all so guilty of, is holding on to things that we think we can control, but we can't. And then we're down on ourselves at the end of the day. So I think focusing on what we can control, consider exploring new hobbies or activities that really bring that joy and purpose into your life. And oftentimes that can take some time to find. But once we do find it, it makes a world of a difference to look forward to those things after a busy week, after a busy month. But at least if we have something to look forward to, we have that line of sight. That again brings us that joy.
Yeah, those are great answers. I don't think anyone would ever disagree with any of those. And hopefully not everyone has to go through like, the super hard challenges that you had to be able to realize like, oh yeah, I can find joy. I don't have to go through super hard challenges or adversity. I can find some kind of inspiration through people like yourselves, or maybe just accidentally you just stumble upon something that sort
Yeah,
of ignites something.
for sure. And progress is not linear, right? Progress can go like this. Some days we think we're going like this and we have a drop, right? And that's okay.
Nicole, so Shelly, who's on the back end, we're also streaming this on LinkedIn. And so a question from LinkedIn has come in. Do you
Okay.
think motivation is bad compared to discipline? Motivation, I think, can make people dependent on rewards and they will not work out for themselves.
Okay. So discipline versus motivation. That's a very interesting question that I haven't actually gotten asked in a very long time. So I think for me, motivation, discipline are two different concepts that can be used to achieve success, but perhaps in different ways. So for me, motivation is, some sort of driving force that propels us towards a particular outcome. So it can come from within a person. So, we know that there's intrinsic motivation or from, let's say, an external source, right? External motivation. And this is just sort of some of my background from taking Psychology 101. Whereas I think of discipline as something, the ability to consistently perform some sort of action or maintain habit, even when motivation wanes or external circumstances are challenging. So I think that both are important in achieving success. I think that they function differently, and they can also be used to different effects. So I think, yeah, I would sort of say motivation in the short term is really a driving force that can help us sort of to get started on a task or goal, while I sort of look at discipline as a long-term strategy for maintaining that focus and then consistency in sort of pursuit of that goal. So I think motivation or discipline is neither good or bad inherently compared to the other. I think both can really be useful in different situations and can be used together to achieve success. But that's a great question and one that I hadn't really thought about.
Well, that's a nice segue into one of the other questions that someone asked, a parent. They had asked, what is the best advice? And I think sort of motivation and discipline come into this, for sticking to fitness goals as a parent, right? Because as a parent, you are
You're
time
busy.
pressed. Yeah. So if you're a stay-at-home parent, you're constantly surrounded by your children. And if you're a working parent, you work and then you come home and then you're surrounded by. So, what's your best advice for people who are in those situations?
Yeah, and I think that relates to the question on the chat as well, right? Like, is your app suitable for all ages, right? So that can be applicable to children as well. So I think being a stay-at-home parent with little ones, incorporating kids into workouts, I think can be so much fun. You can turn your playtime into workout time. You can use activities that both you and your kids can enjoy, like dancing or playing tags. So I will mention on the Fitcentive app, there's also a category titled dance. And some of the workouts, there can be beginner, there can be intermediate, there can be advanced, but they can be great challenges to do as a family together. Um, I think, home workouts, as I mentioned, utilizing online resources for home workouts, all these ones have, little to no experience. You don't need equipment for them. I think having a set schedule. So, for example, using nap times as a parent or early mornings for more intensive workouts. I think with that also is meal prep, right? So preparing healthy meals in advance to avoid sort of opting for quick unhealthy choices. That's something I think we're all guilty of from time to time. But I really think that continuing to stay motivated. So, even just the image of, picturing that you can turn playtime into workout time by using activities that both you and your kids can enjoy, like again, dancing. So I think that those are some strategies that I would think of.
Great. So there's a couple questions in the chat, sorry, not in the chat, in the Q&A about, the hardest thing is starting the exercise. So how, someone's like, help, someone said, help, how do I start? So how would you suggest, like, how do people start that first step, right? To starting that activity, like getting them out of the house, getting them motivated. They don't enjoy doing exercises at home. This is what one person said, and one person just said help.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one of the most important things that I continue to tell myself is setting realistic goals. And I know I've mentioned this before, but I can't tell you the amount of times individuals can be disappointed with themselves for setting a goal that is just not achievable, right? I can make a goal that I want to go to the Olympics in 6 months. Is that achievable? No. I think really being able to decide and make that first step forward. So, for example, you're setting a realistic goal. Once you decide to start exercising rarely, you can then try to create a plan that includes some sort of attainable steps and goals. But I think, making sure that something's actually achievable, making a habit out of it, right? We know that consistency is key when it comes to something like exercise, when it comes to sticking to some sort of habit. But I think making it a habit by scheduling it into your daily routine is so important. So whether you have the daily routine that you want to go through the drive-through at Starbucks or Tim Hortons, or just make a coffee at home, or you put the kids to bed, that is a routine that many of us have routines. So I think starting to create something new in your routine and just making a habit of it, the consistency is key with it. I also can't stress enough that, we all have days where we feel sluggish. We all have days where we're more tired, that we didn't get enough sleep. So having someone, even as a sounding board, an accountability partner, having someone at the end of the day that can help keep you motivated and accountable to what you want to do goes a significant way. And then starting small, right? Again, manageable goals, increasing the intensity throughout if you need to, and then choosing something that you really enjoy doing. So whether it's walking, whether it's swimming, whether it's, going out to play tennis, whether it's going to socialize, it'll make it a lot easier to stick with your routine if you find something that you actually enjoy doing at the end of the day. But it's also important to, listen to your body, not push yourself too hard past your limits. You want to start slow, and you can always increase intensity, duration of whatever it is that you're doing.
Well, I definitely think, you talked about your story with the burns and with the walking, right? Like at one, you were told, and at one point you thought you wouldn't walk, and it was slow gains, slow gains. And now look at you. So if people are thinking like, oh, well, if I start slowly, I'm never going to achieve the goals that I want to achieve.
Yeah.
But clearly you are a testament to start small and just be consistent and just keep at it.
Yeah. And I remember at one point I was laying in the burn unit and I thought to myself, they said tomorrow we're going to start wiggling our toes. And I thought to myself, like, if anyone else heard that on the street, they would think, what a silly task to complete. But to me, I almost couldn't sleep for the next 24 hours thinking, how am I going to get my toes to move? It was in such excruciating pain. Never think about even putting pressure on your feet and standing up, but just the fact of wiggling your toes, right? And again, it's all perspective. Each of us goes through something different in completely different magnitudes, and it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. So here's an interesting question that is being asked. So could you comment on your why and how that is related to your what?
Yes. So commenting on my why and how it's related to my what. So for myself, my why is, why I want to do something that really means a lot to me. My what in life is that I want to engage in fitness activities, that I want to, sort of have that driving purpose that makes me happy. So I think, there's definitely a lot of research in terms of finding your why and how that relates to your what, but I think it makes your what a lot more meaningful. There's a wonderful, wonderful video on YouTube. I think it's by Michael J. Jr. And, he essentially says, he asks the audience, that to or see, he asked the individual on stage to sing a song. So the individual sings a song. Then he says, now what if I told you that your loved one just passed away? Sing the exact same song. And there was so much more deeper connection with the audience with him singing that on stage. I wonder if we can send out the link afterwards. It's just something that came to me. I would have to search it on my own, but he knew why he was singing it, and he knew why and what and how that led to the what that was being asked of him. And it just provides such different meaning into, essentially, it might be the same outcome. You're still singing the song at the end of the day, but that why brings so much more meaning into something. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, there's so many questions coming in. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to listen to you and I'm trying to go through the questions as well. So someone is asking, because you talked about how you basically get paid, right? The motivation. So there's this extrinsic reward. So someone's asking, if I get paid to work out and your app is free, where does the money come from? Or where did the incentives come from?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of donations, a lot of sponsorships. So we have different partners and different affiliates. So for example, let's say we have a supplement company or a workout company or an apparel company, right? That wants to be shown on our website, for example. So we will put their logo up there. We will work with them to have their branding advertised, and in return, they will give us, gift cards that we then use directly to motivate and gift and reward users.
Oh,
So a lot
great.
of it is, sort of that exchange. So, I'm not gaining from it there personally, but it's all sort of this community as to how that works in terms of rewards and incentives.
Oh, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So Stephanie, so this is actually going a little bit away from your fitness background and more into your academics. So Stephanie's asking, you as you were lying on the bed and you changed because you couldn't see as you're having your retinas be reattached,
Right.
you switched your mode of learning from visual to audible. What studying and researching for your PhD? Oh, while studying and researching for your PhD, what tools do you use now that help you to be successful?
That's a great question. I think in regards to my experience and sort of what I'd faced, and because there's such a sort of time delay, like I'm doing my PhD now, I've been working on it for the past few years, but this all sort of happened years ago. There's a lot that I can apply to it, a lot of interconnected skills and transferable skills. I think patience, resiliency, learning that not everything always goes as planned. I think research can be very daunting. It can be very annoying. It can be dry at times. It can be, takes a lot of effort. I think at the end of the day, again, it's everything relates in terms of setting those small goals, meeting some of those smaller milestones in terms of getting to your ultimate goal. So I think it's if anything, at the end of the day, it's brought me a whole new perspective that I didn't know I had. And it's also reminded me to take different sort of stances on things and to understand that there's always more than one side to a story. Right. If I'm feeling frustrated at the end of the day with my research, for example, I will take a different turn of things and sort of understand, well, what can I do differently? And sometimes I'll also remind myself of, what did I overcome before? Was it worse than what I'm going through now? Yes, it is. Right. And it's just sort of reminding yourself, having those small mental notes at the end of the day, that you can continue to push through because you've gone through worse.
Okay, I think this will be the last question because we're almost approaching 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So for folks who are just getting into an active lifestyle and find the habit hard, what are some tips or suggestions you have for us?
Yeah. Great question. So I think I've mentioned a lot of these before. So starting small, right? Beginning with manageable exercises, gradually increasing if you need to. Again, having that consistency is key. So aim to be consistent in your workout routine, whatever it is. Setting goals for yourself, having clear, achievable goals that can really motivate you. Find a buddy, find a partner, work out a friend if you want. You can, FaceTime them into a workout, invite them over. For example, if you're doing a workout on the Fitcentive app, this can all make it so much more enjoyable. And also, don't be scared to mix things up. Try different types of workouts to keep things interesting and challenging for different muscle groups. But also just remember to have fun with it at the end of the day, right? This isn't something that you're supposed to wake up to and just feel like this is the end of the world. It's supposed to be something that you can, genuinely that you want to experience at the end of the day, and that you sort of are experiencing some of those benefits. So, and I think looking at the overall picture of things, I would say to individuals that use every obstacle that you encounter to emerge stronger and better equipped for the future, right? Let your journey be one of resilience and never be afraid to lean on others for help. That's something that I was initially ashamed of. And I used some of that pain as a fuel to move forward in things, right? So, a quote that I always tell my students as well is that success is not final, but failure is not fatal, right? It's the courage to continue that really counts. You can fall 7 times, but stand up 8 at the end of the day. And I think that's what really separates you from moving forward to compare to others.
Well, I think that is a great way to end the evening. I do just want to make, someone had commented that she's a female in her 70s, and then in the last 3 years, I lift a bar and plates. It is truly a fountain of youth. I see this activity more and more with seniors. So thanks,
Amazing.
Tessa. Yeah.
Yeah, what a great comment. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing your story. It truly is, there's people can't see the chat, but we've had a number of comments that have said, your story is truly one of strength and endurance. And thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's too bad that you had to go through that at such a young age, but clearly you've come out the other end of it, and it has it has created who you are, right? You're obviously very motivated. You have this great sense of resilience. And the best thing is you're using all of that to help other people too.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And I mean, I'm always very approachable. So if anyone afterwards, has any comments, questions, they can, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. See some comments, sharing app with friends for sure. Again, this is meant to really help individuals. And again, it's that sense of community.
Oh, someone's just saying it won't let me create an account.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's definitely we can support for sure, but we have thousands of individuals that register. So, yeah, we can
Yeah.
definitely
Oh,
provide
well,
that support.
yes, if whoever's put that in the Q&A, you put it under anonymous. If you want to just put it in the chat, then we can contact you.
Yeah, and that's also my email. I'm not sure if everyone can see that, but that's the FitCentive email. So if there's any questions, um, yeah.
There we go. And sort of on that, on Thursday, we have Dr. Joe Kim. So did you have Dr. Kim as an undergrad for first year psychology, Nicole?
I did not know.
Oh, you may have did you have Dick Day?
Yes, yeah,
Yes, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
so you were probably one of the last students to have Dick Day. Anyway, Dr. Joe Kim is a cognitive psychologist, and he teaches the first year psychology course. And he is going to do a talk sort of on that is sort of following a theme here on goals versus systems, using psychology to improve productivity. So I'm just going to put that link there in the chat, and you will oh, sorry, I'm just reading. It's like, I remember Dr.
Yeah.
Day. Yes, everyone of a certain vintage remembers Dick Day. He just retired a couple of years ago, but I see him walking around Westdale. Anyway, sorry, that was a tangent there. So if you are available on Thursday and you want to watch, feel free to just click on that link and you can register that way. This talk is being recorded, and I'm hoping that we'll send you the link tomorrow. And then in that email with the link will be a link to Dr. Kim's talk as well.
Amazing.
Okay, so some people can create an account and some people aren't able to. So I'm
Yeah, I think it just takes
thinking,
a little bit of time, but there's
yes,
no,
yeah.
yeah, there
And
shouldn't be
if
any
so,
roadblocks to it.
Nicole also put her email in there.
Yeah.
So if you're truly having some issues, then yeah, feel free to email Nicole and she'll be able to help you out.
Wonderful. That sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you, Nicole, again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Shelley, for helping out on the back end. We wish you all a fond farewell, and we hope we will, no, you get to see me again, but I don't get to see you. I only get to see your names in the chat. But anyway, I hope you'll be able to join us again later in the week or in a future webinar next month or whenever your schedule allows you to tune in to one of our webinars. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks,
Perfect.
Nicole.
Thank
Take
you. Bye-bye.
care. Bye.